Now, we're supposed to start with the Minister of Labour and Employment. He's running a bit late, so we go to the second part of the program and move that to the top. And let's stay with the theme of Workers' Day and prepare to speak to the President of Nigeria's Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, a unionist who's devoted many years of his life fighting for the Nigerian worker. He's been in regular scraps with those in authority, talking to government officials and trying to fight the corner of his millions of union members amid the intense challenge of the government regularly backtracking on its commitments, from bad governance to the cost of living crisis, broken promises on the minimum wage to the fuel subsidy question. He's witnessed it all, often while seated at the negotiating table with leading government officials or whilst being harassed by security agents. So, as the Nigerian worker marks yet another Labour Day, how does he look back on the trajectory of the labour unions? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the President of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on another Labour Day.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I congratulate the entire Nigerians and indeed workers worldwide for marking another International Labour's Day.
Yes, and we had wanted you to respond to the minister, but now the minister is going to have to respond to you because he's running late. He's almost here, but that's okay. I wonder if you'd like to tell us how you've been marking Workers' Day today.
Yes, once again, I congratulate the entire Nigerian workers across the various industries and sectors in Nigeria for marking yet again another Workers' Day. So for us, Workers' Day is a celebration of a labor that we've put into production, the celebration of ourselves. You know, in the year, 365 days in the year, we have one day for us to sit down, reflect, and celebrate our contribution to the national development. So today, we try as much as possible to put aside all the pressures, to put aside the economic difficulties, the challenges that we are facing as a people and as a nation, to just try and be happy and celebrate, ourselves. Look at all the contributions that we've put into the factor of production over the years and also try to re-strategize on the way forward by looking at the pressing issues that is suffocating the Nigerian workers and try as much as possible to advocate for it. So for us, today is a day of us celebrating ourselves across the nook and cranny of Nigeria and indeed globally.
But as you said, of course, a day of reflection as well. And of course, it's nearly 2 years into the administration of President Tinubu. How would you assess the plight of the Nigerian worker in those 2 years? Do things look bright or bleak?
No, the plight of Nigerian workers in the last 2 years has not been quite good. Although for several years now, we've had myriad of factors that has clearly affected the Nigerian workers. And it was further exacerbated in the last 2 years by the twin policy the government came with, majorly the fuel subsidy removal and the devaluation of Naira. Like as we have said, like in Trade Union Congress, we clearly noted that the reason we are passing through this level of difficulties and challenges as a country is majorly tied to the devaluation. We think that there was a bit an unforced error that occurred, at the beginning of the administration. Because if you remember as at then, when the currency was devalued as at June 2023, there was no properly constituted CBN, if you remember.
The Central Bank of Nigeria.
Central Bank of Nigeria. Yeah. If you remember very well, Emefiele was facing the SEC trial.
That's Godwin Emefiele, who was the governor
of Central Bank. Right. And the most members, the deputy governors then of Central Bank, they were all facing a lot of issues with the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. So when the Naira was devalued as at then, there wasn't properly constituted Central Bank board led by the governor of Central Bank and the deputy governors. So what now happened then was that speculators, lashed into that and the Naira was free for all. So the reason we've analyzed in Trade Union Congress of Nigeria that let's assume if that devaluation was done as at when it was done. As at that time, if the exchange rate as at that time was still where around 450 naira to a dollar, PMS today would have been around 300
That's
naira.
petrol.
Petrol.
Petrol price.
Yes, petrol motor
Right.
spirit. The price of petrol motor spirit would have been somewhere around 300 naira per liter. So what that means is that the movement of the price that we saw across board, if you remember very well, Charles, as at May 29th, 2023, the price of AGO, which is diesel, was around 250 to 300 naira per liter. But post devaluation, it went to about 1,000 naira and 1,000 naira plus per liter. So the reason today we are having challenges across board, the reason today that the prices of cars has gone above the roof, the reason the price of your camera has gone above the roof, if you check, the dollar value is practically the same. But when you are now converting to Naira, instead of multiplying by 450 Naira, you now multiply by 1,500. So that has actually affected literally everything. So, like as we have said, which we have opined to government, that the mistake that was made as at then was allowing the Naira to be on a free fall. Right. Because all institutions, both local and foreign financial institutions, have said that even today, that the Naira is undervalued. Even the CBN governor in Washington last year, when they had the IMF and World Bank spring meeting, also attested to the fact that our Naira is undervalued. So what that clearly means is that the excruciating difficulties we are passing through in our economy today can be linked directly to that. Because as an import-dependent country, when you bring in your import, you are buying it from a foreign land in USD, that's United States dollars, you would not have to convert to an exchange rate. So that is the dilemma. So generally, overall, in the last 2 years, Nigerian workers has passed through excruciating pain.
And they're still
Nigerian workers is currently passing through challenges, as brought about.
And the problem, of course, is that the government, having made that mistake that you're talking about, they've left you to bear the burden, the Nigerian worker to bear the burden. Absolutely. So, so the burden has been very glaring. The burden has been very strong over time. Even when the minimum wage was negotiated, we were negotiating in a very difficult circumstance, a very difficult macro and microeconomics system that was not really in the favor of the Nigerian workers. And as you make that assessment of the workers under the Tinubu administration 2 years on, what has your relationship with the government been like? Have they been honoring the commitments they've made to the labor unions?
No, I could say it's been up and down. So some areas they honor, but some areas they don't honor. For example, if you remember very well, when we, in October, I think we had an agreement with them, October 2nd, 2023. So that agreement that we had with government, October 2nd, 2023, contained the wage award, for example. So in the area of that wage award, it was said that wage award is going to be paid until the new minimum wage becomes implementable, agreed and implemented. But that wage award was paid for just 4 months. It was stopped in February when the new minimum wage came into effect around July, August. So that was a promise not kept. Like we all often tell them, that for us, don't enter into an agreement if you are not willing to abide by the content, by the letters and the spirit of that agreement. So as we speak, that was still outstanding. Although in the communique, you have some wins that are in the communique, and like some issues that are around the CNG buses distribution, some issues around building infrastructure of CNG across the nook and crannies of the country. Those we have been monitoring them, we have been following them. Even when they sign MOUs with some of the providers, we are strongly pushing for them to get those things implemented, because we know that if they implement some of the agreements that we reached, even in the October 2nd communique, a lot of wins will be in there for the Nigerian workers.
And where do things stand today with the minimum wage? I think it was 70,000 Naira. So, is payment still delayed in some states?
Yes. So in Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, we had our NEC meeting here sometime last week. I think precisely on Wednesday last week. So when we had the National Executive Council meeting, we had interactions with all our state chairmen, from state chairmen and secretaries from the country. So we took a roll call, asking them, where are we in terms of the minimum wage implementation? True to it, all of them has said in their respective states that minimum wage of 70,000 naira is being implemented. But in some states, about 4 states or thereabout, that we are having issues regarding consequential adjustment. Because really, the issue is not really about the minimum wage, but the issue is about how you implement the consequential adjustment across grade. Minimum wage is for grade level 1, step 1. And in federal and state civil service, there is really no one in grade level 1, step 1. Because if you are entering any of these civil service, with primary school certificate, you are going to start from grade level 2, step 1. So that means that with primary certificate, you will earn even above minimum wage. But the question is this: that minimum wage that was signed was 133% increment when compared to the 30,000 naira minimum wage. All right. So now they are now supposed to apply that percentage. You graduate it across board. So that someone before who was a university graduate that is on grade 8, maybe step 2, entering the civil service, that was before then earning 120,000 naira. You will now apply at least maybe 100% to its salary. But that consequential adjustment is not done properly. Right. So that is actually the challenge we are having in some
And was
states.
that part of the agreement that you had with the government?
No.
Because you negotiated the minimum wage.
Yes. So no, what we normally do is this. Right. At the labor center, at the level of TUC and NLC, what we do is that we negotiate the floor. Right. We negotiate the minimum. So now we have affiliate unions in public service, and we have affiliate union in the private sector that will now go and negotiate with their respective employers.
And that was negotiated?
Yes, for the federal government, they have what we call the Joint Negotiating Council from the federal government, led by the OCTA president. So they went there, they negotiated the consequential adjustment. That is not our business. So in the private sector as well, we are also, most of the affiliate unions, they are negotiating what we call the collective bargaining agreement. It suffices you to note that in TUC, for example, 80% of our affiliates are in the private sector. They are not in the public sector. So, and most of these people, even before the 70,000 minimum wage was negotiated, majority of them earn way above that minimum wage. So they earn way above minimum wage. So when you now negotiate that minimum wage, what we will now do, or what we have been doing across board, but this is the press is not always interested in this, but we've had a lot of gains in some of the private sectors. In places like FOCTOB, Food Beverage, Tobacco Seniors Association of Nigeria, a place like Pengasam, Petroleum and Natural Gas Seniors Association of Nigeria. So you could go to other private sectors, CAMSA, for example, Chemical and Metallic, industry. We have unions there. They've been negotiating a lot of CBAs, collective bargaining agreement with their private sector to reflect the economic realities. So,
and they've been successful.
Yes, of course.
Right.
I can
so
tell
the problem
for example,
have actually is the government.
Yes. So the major problem is actually the consequential adjustment from government.
Right.
But at the federal level, I can tell you that the consequential adjustment negotiated by the unions in that sector has been largely implemented. But in the state also, most of the states, out of 36 states plus FCT, from our NEC meeting of last week, it is just about 4 of them that complained that the consequential adjustment has not been done properly. That means that a lot of others, they've done it well. But in the local government, that is where we also have some challenges. So in some of the local governments, as at today, they have not started the full implementation of the minimum wage.
Well, listening to you, the impression one gets is of a mixed picture.
Correct.
But not a terrible picture.
Yes, in terms of implementation,
yes.
Correct.
In other words, this government has made some significant progress towards implementation. It may not be where you want it to be, but it's not where it was
correct.
previously.
In terms of minimum wage implementation, correct.
And that suggests that the level of dialogue between the unions and the government, which is so essential to building trust, as you champion workers' rights and as you act as intermediaries between the workers and the government, that level of dialogue has improved under the Tinubu administration. Is that a fact?
Yes, I would say that we've had some robust conversations and dialogue. For example, in 2023, at the first quarter of, 2024, the first quarter of 2024, TUC, we sat down. We analyzed the economy. We brought in economic experts. We looked at the economy and we pointed out some of the things we think government should do. As at then, the USD was moving close to 1,700, 1,800, running even much more than that. So we profiled some solutions. It was about 10 to 12 point solutions that we profiled. We had a meeting up to the secretary to the government of the federation where we told them that some of the essential food, you have to import some food items. You won't say because of national pride that you want to produce what you consume locally, and today we are having state of insecurity across the nook and cranny of the country. Which means
you can't produce
Which means
food.
you cannot produce.
Yeah.
So because of that pride, you will not now say your people should die of hunger, that you have to import food. And the food that, and also give license for people to also bring in food. And you give waiver, the import waiver to them. So these, in some areas, they listened when they started bringing in rice paddies and all that. So also, we also told them, as at them, the issue of exchange rate. We had meeting to the highest level of this country when exchange rate was running down, because we told them that the more the exchange rate continuously move, the more it is going to affect us all. And we proffer some solutions to them, to it. We have seen that to some extent they have been implementing some of these solutions, but we are not there yet, because we think that where the fair exchange rate should be somewhere around 1,000 Naira to 1 USD, maximum 1,200. Charles, if our exchange rate is managed and is gotten to that point today, I will tell you that it is going to reduce the cost of goods in the market by over 20 to 30%.
Yeah, but the only way you can get to that part is to increase productivity within Nigeria.
No, you are correct.
And if that doesn't happen, which is what the government is trying to do, then it's never going to come down to that.
Charles, think about it. Over the years, our exchange rate has not moved the way it moves today. We have been an import-dependent country, right? What are we importing today that we weren't importing then? Right. In fact, we used to import PMS 100% into Nigeria, right? But today, it's no longer like that.
Yeah, well, because the fuel subsidy is gone.
No, because fuel subsidy is gone, and because Dangote is now producing locally.
Right.
So with Dangote producing locally,
you would have thought the prices would come down considerably.
Not even prices per se, because what will bring the price down if you produce locally are two things. One is the price of crude in international market, and secondly, the exchange rate locally. Those are the two principal contributors. But as we produce locally, we ought to conserve some effects. That means our import, if you look at the import-export parity, what they call balance of payment, should be in favor of Nigeria as at today. So when that happens, it means that we are now also producing, our productivity level locally has increased, because our energy import cost was one of the highest before now in the world, one of the highest contributors. So if that has been largely taken care of, what we are saying is this. Look at China. Look at Japan. How did they react to the United States when the international trade war started? They started managing their yuan. They started managing their yen. That is what countries do all over the world. Countries do that. So what we are saying is this. Over the years, we have been managing our FX, and it has helped the populace. So all we are saying is that because the FX is undervalued, and today, one of the areas with which we expand our FX is the PMS. And PMS today, we produce largely internally. That means we can walk around that corridor to be able to manage our FX to about 1,000, 1,200. I can tell you that this is completely doable. If this
so why do you think they're not doing it?
Yes, so when it was running down to 1,900, like I said, so we approached them. We had a meeting with them, and it was quite fruitful. Some of the solutions that we put down there is actually why we have our FS within the range today. We proposed about four solutions to them. Let me tell you what happened, Charles. In 2023, when the currency was devalued. This was what happened. This was what happened when the currency was devalued. It was running down. From 450, it went to 500, it went to 800, it was going down. So when it was getting to 800, the then those that were coming in as ministers and all that, they called the managers of the fiscal area. They called the entire bank chief executives to Abuja, and they sat down with them, and they told them, we're privy to the conversation in that meeting, and they told them that if you get any FX, if anybody apply to buy FX more than 800 naira, you reject. So that rejection was actually done for, if you check between July and October 2023, our exchange rate did not go above 800 naira officially. The reason it did not go above 800 naira was actually the way they were managing it. But by October, November, they let off the system. So what we are saying is that if you can manage it like that, right, if you have managed it over the years like that, that within 10 years, our exchange rate did not devalue up to 100%. So you can also develop that mechanism, right, to manage it. Okay. But let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what happened.
We're almost out of time.
It would be interesting to note this, Charles. If you remember, sometime in 2024, our exchange rate was appreciating up to about 1,200, if you remember. From 1,700, it was coming down gradually. But there was a pushback from the subnationals. There was a huge pushback from the subnationals, putting pressure on the federal government that the exchange rate should be left alone, should not be allowed to get to 1,200 or 1,100. The reason is because the largest that they are getting today in terms of FAC allocation, it's actually largely because of exchange rate, not majorly because of subsidy removal. Right. Because government has not been funding subsidy. It's been largely funded by NNPC, and that has put some holes in their purse. But that's a subject for another day. But if you now look at it, when the exchange rate was coming down, what they now did was that they had a meeting, they pushed back government. That was why it moved again from 1,200 to about 1,600 that it is today. So not that it cannot be done. They were actually implementing some of the recommendations we put forward as at 2024, but they had a kickback from the subnationals because they wanted more Naira.
Well, I mean, just listening to you talk, what I take away from this is that dialogue has improved with the government, and some of the things that the commitments the government has made to you, they've been fulfilling those commitments. So as we mark this Labor Day, there is some improvement, and that is something to take away and feel a little bit, happy about, given that this is, we're marking this day today. I want to thank you very much indeed. Very robust analysis on your part, President of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo. Thank you very much indeed.
I appreciate it. Thank you.